President Trump has suggested that he may accept the upcoming Republican nomination from the White House. The move has drawn some criticism from politicians on both sides of the aisle who say that we should maintain a separation between politics and the work of governing that takes place in that building. But as it turns out, President Trump wouldn't be the first candidate to deliver his party's acceptance speech from the White House. Presidential historian Doug Wead joins us now to tell us about the last time this happened. Doug, good to have you, sir. So when did it happen before?
1940, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, he accepted his nomination from the White House because, yes, the White House is a federal building, but it is also the president's personal residence.
Well, what is it that they talk about the Hatch Act? Can you address that there's concerns that could you explain the relationship of the so-called Hatch Act with using a government property for political purposes?
Yeah, I mean, the Clintons gotten a lot of criticism because they virtually rented out the Lincoln bedroom. You could make a $100,000 donation and they'd let you spend the night there. It's pretty outrageous. That's about as bad as it got. I think they brought in millions of dollars to the Democrat Party. But to give you an idea, I was in a meeting in the Roosevelt Room back in the 1970s in the Jimmy Carter administration, and the assistant to the president, Ann Wexler, after the president left the room, she said, you know, we're getting into a political discussion here. I'm afraid we're going to have to close and reconvene. So they closed the meeting in the Roosevelt Room of the White House, walked across the street into a non-federal building and picked up the conversation there. So the law is strict. You're not supposed to use federal property to promote a political agenda or political ideas.
Wow, that's really interesting. In fact, considering, maybe you could tell me, because you're the historian, did Jimmy Carter go to his party's convention? Remember, he was always considered the 55th hostage because he stayed in the White House while we had hostages in Iran. Yeah,
well, that's right. And I was there in the White House on that critical weekend in April when the Americans attempted to rescue those hostages. That was extremely tragic. It was a tough time for America and for Jimmy Carter. And of course, the transition to Reagan, where everything went smoothly, was just dramatic.
Yeah, not only that, but you went from the malaise speech, which, by the way, he never said the word malaise, but everybody felt it. As you know, you felt like there was a malaise. And then you have Ronald Reagan come in, and you have the optimism that came along with him, and you had all these reporters throwing all this stuff, and he just basically shaking it all off, became the Teflon president, and looked positively toward the future. I always really appreciated that.
Yeah, you know, a lot of people criticize Donald Trump, but they say he's Pollyanna, but he's very positive. He's a businessman. He's learned that in business, that you can speak what will happen. You say it, then it can happen. And that's part of his style. Yeah. And it has worked for him, and it irritates some people. But
yeah, you know, it's funny you mention that because recently there was an interview with Axios, and I thought the reporter, he started off about talking about how he's kind of a salesman for a certain position, or he's optimistic, and I guess he wanted to bring the focus down on how bad things were. But I think most people do like optimism from the very top, right?
Yeah, I think so. We have to have hope or we're not going to go anywhere. So right now we're seeing a very pessimistic message on one side. We'll see how that works. Sometimes fear drives a campaign, and that's what 1984 is all about. That's what Chicken Little is all about. The sky is falling. So maybe fear will drive the campaign this cycle, but it's definitely fear versus hope. On the one hand, yes, we're going to have a vaccine. We're going to get through this. We're going to make it. It's going to be a V. The economy's coming back. And on the other hand, it's never been this bad. It's a dictatorship. This is awful.
Right. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I'm not sure I've ever seen it so polarized, although 68 was something. I'm sure you could comment on that.
It was something. 148 cities had neighborhoods burned to the ground. There were tanks on the streets in Washington, D.C.
Yeah, yeah. Well, at least 2020 is not that. Maybe in a handful of cities we're seeing that. Yeah, let's hope not. It doesn't reach that kind of number. Doug Wead, thank you so much, sir.
Thanks for having me.
All right.